This is very much something that will deliver for both the wealth, but also the health of the people of Ireland. So we see that as being a sort of a dual opportunity, if I like that. I think it's very exciting.
Hello and welcome to another episode in the Transatlantic Biotech series with Cromwell Executive Search. These interviews have been put together with the vision of tapping into the strong connections that exist in the biotech and life science communities between Ireland and the US. My name is Sean Carter. I'm the co-founder and managing partner at Cromwell Executive Search. So today we have a very special guest live from Washington. So we have Professor Mark Lawler. Mark is Associate Pro Vice Chancellor and Professor of Digital Health at the Faculty of Medicine, Health and Life Science at Queen's University. He's also Chair in Translational Cancer Genomics at Queen's University. He's co-lead of the All-Ireland Cancer Research Institute, Chair of the International Cancer Benchmarking Partnership, and Scientific Director at DataCan, UK's Health Data Research Hub for Cancer. And you're also co-lead of the Health Data Research UK's big data for complex disease research driver program. Mark, I'm exhausted after reading that. You must be exhausted of all those titles. But thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule this week to speak with me, Mark. I've been really looking forward to this one today. Mark, it is such a privilege to have you speak with me. And given the week that's in it, I suppose what we will cover will be quite fitting too. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Sean, thanks very much indeed. Delighted to be on the podcast. Hope we haven't sent everybody to sleep with all the list of titles. Apologies for that.
No, it's you know, as I said, it's really great to have you on today. You know, some of the stuff that we will cover. You know, we'll have a serious element to it, but a positive as well with the work that you're doing. Mark, I suppose there's so much we can talk about. How about kicking things off with the signing of the Good Friday Agreement over 25 years ago now? It's crazy how you know that the time flies. But I suppose reflecting myself and my own experiences, you know, thankfully I'm of the last generation with lived experience of our conflict, and you know, as a society, I'm very proud of where we are now. But peace and reconciliation has not been the only benefit of the agreement. There's been also been a health dividend for peace. Mark, would you like to start with that? Why are you in Washington this week?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Sean. You're really interesting, and probably something that a lot of people don't really know, or maybe have heard a little bit about, but not a lot. So happy to expand on that. And so, yeah, one of the dividends of the Good Friday Agreement was an agreement that was signed the next year. So obviously the Good Friday Agreement was signed in 1998, but just over a year later in 1999, November 99, an agreement was signed between the governments of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the US National Cancer Institute, which is one of the best cancer institutes in the world. And this was a really interesting development because it sort of saw that in creating peace, and obviously we got a lasting peace on the island of Ireland, it also gave the opportunity to actually look at other things. And one of the things that was looked at was health, and particularly in relation to cancer. The reason why cancer was chosen, if you like, was through Paddy Johnson, who was Professor of Oncology at the time in Queen's, had just come back from the National Cancer Institute in Washington, where he'd worked for over a decade. And he had great vision and foresight. He saw an opportunity really to link the peace process to a process that would actually lead to improved and enhanced cancer care and research for patients across the island of Ireland. And I think that was a special part of it. It wasn't just thinking about Northern Ireland, where there were challenges, and I'll talk about that, but also looking at this all-island approach and bringing in the expertise from the National Cancer Institute, but very much in a shared approach. So not let's all bring all these big boys over from the United States, from Washington, and they'll do it, and you just sit aside and watch them do it. It was very much that co-creation. And I remember being there in 1999 in Stormont when the agreement was actually signed, the Northern Ireland US National Cancer Institute Memorandum of Understanding, as it was called at the time. And there was a palpable sense in the corridors of power of this being something different We've obviously had lots of things signed, etc. It was obviously a very, turbulent time in the previous decade, particularly. But this was a real opportunity, and I remember that, and I remember thinking, God, this could be something really different, because I think everybody bought into it first of all straight away, and also saw that opportunity between working north and south and east and particularly west. It was really an opportunity that we had a great chance here to do something completely different. It's never been done, not only on the island of Ireland, but actually across the world. It's never been done before. And so this was a great opportunity to really bring together expertise, training experience, research opportunities, and look to see how they would all come together in a sort of a milieu, if you like, to really drive better outcomes on the island of Ireland for patients with cancer.
So what were the statistics that kind of drove this? You know, what I read somewhere, Mark, that we had the worst cancer outcomes in UK and Western Europe.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, in the 1990s, the sort of mid to late 1990s, having cancer and being in Northern Ireland were not two good things together. They were essentially, if you looked at the services, they were fragmented. There was little or no research. And also, if you look pretty much for any cancer that you chose, we had the worst outcomes in the United Kingdom. And the Republic of Ireland wasn't much better either. So, in both jurisdictions, if you like, it was quite clear that something urgent needed to be done. I think that's where Paddy had that vision to say, we need to do something, but we need to do it quickly. And so inside that year from the Good Friday Agreement being signed, the Memorandum of Understanding was signed, and that set up what was called the Ireland Northern Ireland NCI Cancer Consortium. And we looked at it after 20 years. So 20 years of the program, we looked at it back at the just at the turn of the millennium. And what we really found was very interesting. We found that there was much more collaboration between the North and South in relation to cancer research, and also opportunities in relation to cancer care. And also we started to introduce clinical trial infrastructure. There'd been really little or no cancer clinical trials, and obviously that's the way in which you get innovative medicines to patients as quickly as possible. And sort of cancer screening was fairly sort of disparate and not really well organized, and cancer services were fragmented. But it's interesting, if you took breast cancer, for example, as an example, just of what happened in the intervening period. So breast cancer in 1999, we had the worst outcomes in the United Kingdom. If you roll forward to 2006, we'd actually enhanced outcomes by nearly 30%. And by 2013, going from, if you like, zero to hero, we've gone from having the worst outcomes for breast cancer to the best outcomes in the United Kingdom for breast cancer. So that was telling, and showing that actually, making an intervention really made a difference to people's lives, particularly cancer patients' lives.
So what did that roadmap look like? How did the seismic change come around?
Yeah, I think that the first recognition was that you needed to have a research active cancer registry. So because you need to know what was the situation, you need to be able to collect data and intelligence to tell you this is where you're at the moment, and then how can you benchmark yourself to get better by comparing yourself with other nations of the world. And the second thing was services were reconfigured, and there was a cancer centre put in place in Belfast. And the third was the emphasis on research. So saying research needs to be part of this, not an added extra, an integral part of it. And that led eventually to the establishment of the what was then called the Centre for Cancer Research and Cell Biology, what was subsequently renamed on Paddy's unfortunate passing completely unexpectedly in 2017, is now called the Patrick G. Johnson Centre for Cancer Research. So those things, so research, services, screening, but an overarching sort of cancer institute, if you like, was really important. And then that North-South program. So if you looked at it, the period that we looked at it first in terms of what was happening, we saw that like over 550 healthcare professionals, scientists, allied healthcare professionals all went to the National Cancer Institute and received different forms of training. Some were fairly brief visits, some were longer visits, some people stayed. But a lot of people came back to sort of bolster the cancer research and the cancer care effort on the island of Ireland.
And you touched on the various jurisdictions involved, Mark, and given politics on the island and how fragmented it has been recently, can you give us a bit of a flavour for the challenges that you faced and how you got around those?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, yeah, I suppose the advantage was it was health. And I think health is an easier buy-in for politicians than some other aspects. And I think the other, the mantra that we had was that cancer knows no borders. So it shouldn't matter where you're living in relation to the island of Ireland. You should get access to the equal level of cancer care. You should be benefiting from the research discoveries in relation to cancer research. And so that made it, I think, easier. I think people bought into that idea. I'm not saying that there weren't challenges, and it was certainly it was a difficult pathway. I think particularly that work that we did in 2020, at that stage, there was a little bit of resistance. It's not the right word, but maybe sort of just being comfortable and saying, oh, we've done it now, cancer is sorted, let's go on to something else, when it certainly wasn't. And one of the key things that we did after sort of doing that sort of 20-year analysis was we published it in the European Journal of Cancer. So that meant it was recognized by the international community as a particular initiative that was really important. But the other thing was we went to the National Cancer Institute in Washington to meet as sort of a high-level delegation from the NCI to show them that data and to show what they'd done actually had real impact. And that reignited the Cancer Consortium. The Memorandum of Understanding was re-signed on the day before Patrick's Day in 2021. And I think that was because if you remember at that time, there was tensions in relation to the two governments, sort of 2020, 2021. And so health, I think, was probably the only thing that they could have talked about together. And we had, the two ministers for health at the time, who are now two ministers for health again, so Robin Swan and Stephen Donnelly, and then the director of the National Cancer Institute, Ned Sharpless, and they signed, and obviously that was during COVID, so that had to be done remotely. But I think recognizing what the NCI had achieved, I think made them realize here's an opportunity. And the other thing we did that I think was critically important, we showed what the impact of COVID had been on cancer patients and cancer services. And to be perfectly frank, and this is not just on the island of Ireland, certainly in the UK, but really across the world, the impact of the COVID pandemic and national lockdowns on cancer patients and cancer services has frankly been disastrous. And so that allied to showing the success we had over 20 years, showing the problems we were now facing because of the impact of COVID, I think convinced the NCI that they needed to reinvigorate and re-sign this agreement, and that's duly happened in 2021.
Great. And what does the future look like with regards to the collaboration?
The future is really very promising, but it's up to us to take advantage of that opportunity. So National Cancer Institute are very much on board. A number of us, myself, my colleague Liam Gallagher, and Stephen Channock from the National Cancer Institute are all speaking at a special event that Intertrade Ireland are running here in Washington. Ironically, they're also 25 years old, so it's their 25th anniversary. So it's obviously a big deal for them as well. And we'll be showcasing what was done from an all-island basis in relation to cancer. And I think two things that have been really important and really give us hope going forward. I think the first thing is we looked just at the end of last year at what we'd achieved going forward. So building on what we looked at in 2000, and we found that we were doing more together. So if you look at it, collaborations involving researchers from the north and the south, 13.5-fold up on what we'd been doing before the agreement was put in place. So that was great. So that was sort of quantity, if you like. But the most important thing is quality. And we've developed sort of a quality index, if you like. And we've seen a 550% increase in quality of this. So we're not only are we doing more, but we're doing better. And I think that's really important. And one of the things that's contributed to that is setting up what's called an All-Island Cancer Research Institute. And that's a co-led by myself and Liam Gallagher from University College Dublin. And we've brought together the 10 universities on the island of Ireland and looking specifically at research. And you might ask, well, why are you looking at research? Why not just care? Care is really important, and we're not in any way avoiding that, but we realize that cancer research is the key to driving better care for patients. We've shown conclusively that patients, if they're treated in research active hospitals, have better outcomes than those who are not. So cancer research is not a luxury, it's actually a necessity to deliver 21st century cancer care. So we see that as the impetus going forward. So it's almost building on the shoulders of giants. What we achieved in the first 20 years, we're now building on that and putting in that sort of research infrastructure. And it's really great because it means you're sort of bringing together the best minds on the island of Ireland, together with our very sort of influential partners at the National Cancer Institute. So in a way, you could almost say, I'm not tempting fate here, I hope, but that combination is unbeatable.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Well done to you guys. It's the outcomes speak for themselves, I suppose. But I'd love to get an understanding, Mark, of what the research and the collaboration means for the broader life science sector in Ireland, north and south. So the biotech and the diagnostic firms. Is there opportunity there for the industry?
Completely. And one of the things we've very much emphasized is research and innovation. So that innovation piece is really important. We're just at the moment undertaking a study with Intertrade Ireland in relation to sort of precision oncology and digital health. And we'll be launching that on the 24th of April in Dublin. And that's a big opportunity for us to look at, what is the chances we have to work together. Joe Kennedy III is the special envoy, as you know, for Northern Ireland at the behest of President Biden, called out actually our initiative at BioConvention in Boston last year. And the reason why he called it out, he could see that, yes, we're trying to do something that saves people's lives, that gives better quality of life for patients, but there's also that economic impetus. And we see great opportunities in terms of driving the life sciences sector, both in Ireland and in Northern Ireland, and both in diagnostics and in treatment. And that sort of digital part of it as well is really important, because really you can't deliver cancer treatment, cancer research without digital, without data intelligence, and that's really important. So we're quite excited about that. And just a caveat to show you what is possible, a company called CV6 Diagnostics is an example of what we would call a spin-in company. So they've spun in from the University of Southern California into Queen's University Belfast. Why did they do that? Because they recognized that Queen's University Belfast was the best place in the world to do the research that they wanted to do to develop a treatment for colorectal cancer. And hey presto, they're now just about to enroll their first patient in a clinical trial. So there's an example of the research being important, the saving people's lives being important, but also that driving that economic benefit. So there's an economic dividend as well as a health dividend of peace. And we're very keen on how we can work together. I was over in Boston there just last December, meeting with Mass Bio, looking at the opportunities there. A number of my other colleagues are doing similar. So this is very much something that will deliver for both the wealth, but also the health of the people of Ireland. So we see that as being a sort of a dual opportunity, if I like that. I think it's very exciting.
And so what's the week look like for you then in Washington? I'm sure you've got several interesting engagements.
Yeah, I mean, probably top of the list and something that we've worked on for probably the best part of the year is actually presenting to the Congressional Cancer Caucus. So that's members of the House of Representatives who have a particular focus on cancer. They're quite influential. And so on Thursday, we're actually going to be presenting before that group. And we're very excited about that. Myself, Liam Gallagher from UCD, Jarushka Naidu from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland and Beaumont Hospital, and Kieran Briscoe, who's a patient advocate and leads a cancer charity in the Northeast. this is a great opportunity for us to showcase what we're doing. I was very fortunate last September to present to the Science Summit of the United Nations General Assembly, where it was recognised that what we've done in the island of Ireland in the last 25 years actually is recognised now internationally as an exemplar of best practice in relation to the health dividend of peace. So we're presenting that on Thursday. We're very excited about that because that's really, you need to get the politicians on board, as you know yourself, Sean. And this is a great opportunity to do that. As I said, we're also presenting at the Intertrade Ireland 25th anniversary. We're presenting at the IPAC dinner, myself and Deirdre Heenan, who's Professor of Social Policy in Ulster University. And that's another great example. The two universities working together. That's a particular project that's funded through the Royal Irish Academy and the University of Notre Dame. So lots happening, and we're trying to sort of bang the drum as much as possible for all island cancer research and care. We're very excited about this week, and as I said, it's great to be talking to you from Washington. It sort of adds an extra, I don't know, frisson or whatever to the because things are obviously very immediate.
Yeah, well, I suppose as we approach St. Patrick's Day, it is fitting to have you on today, Mark, and talk about such a positive things that are happening with regards to the collaboration and the research and I suppose the outcomes for cancer patients right across the island and further afield. But thank you very much, Mark. You're
very welcome. And just to say finally, this is, cancer knows no borders, but the other thing that's really important is the cooperation piece. We need to compete not against each other, but against our common enemy, which is cancer. To quote my friend, colleague, mentor, sadly missed, Paddy Johnson, he was always looking at how can we do better. And I'm paraphrasing this slightly, but dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men nor women. I think that's a fitting way. We're ambitious. We want to deliver. We have a great opportunity here. I'm delighted that Stormont is back because they need to deliver. We're delivering. They need to deliver. Let's deliver together.
That's a great way to finish, Mark. Thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your trip.
Cheers, Sean.